If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and let's see how far our stories reach. Your voice matters here. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because tomorrow we'll bring you another story, one filled with hope, healing, and a moment that might just change everything. See you then. Lucas Bennett didn't usually take detours, not in business, not in life. At 42, he was the kind of man who made decisions like chess moves, calculated, efficient, with every piece serving a purpose. But that morning, with his daughter Emma burning up in the back seat of his black SUV, something shifted. The city hospital was just 15 minutes away, state-of-the-art, fully equipped, the logical choice for a man like Lucas. But Emma, flushed and fragile in the rearview mirror, had whispered through her fever, "I don't want the big hospital, Daddy. It's too cold there. Can we go somewhere small, where people are kind?" It wasn't like her to ask for much. That's what broke him. So instead of pulling into the towering ER parking structure, Lucas found himself turning onto a quiet street, lined with old brick storefronts and faded signage. Nestled between a bakery and a closed-down hardware store was the Maple Hollow Community Health Center. It looked like it hadn't seen a renovation since the 90s. Paint peeling, window blinds slightly crooked, but the open sign glowed soft and steady in the glass. Lucas stepped out, gathered Emma into his arms, her small frame trembling, a stuffed panda clutched tightly to her chest, and pushed through the clinic door. The bell above the entrance chimed, a delicate sound, like wind through a wind chime. Inside, it was warm. Not sterile or blinding like most medical offices, but soft. A faint scent of eucalyptus filled the air. Jazz played gently from a speaker tucked somewhere behind the reception desk. There were hand-painted pictures on the walls, likely drawn by kids, and a worn, cushioned bench that looked more like someone's living room than a waiting room. Lucas settled Emma down and looked around. He wasn't expecting anything grand, just hoping someone kind would see her quickly, and that's when it happened. A door opened at the end of the hallway. A figure in a white coat stepped out, clipboard in hand. Her hair was tied neatly, her posture calm and poised. But the moment their eyes met, the world seemed to pause. Lucas froze. The breath left his chest. It was Claire Monroe. He hadn't seen her in nearly 15 years. She looked exactly the same, and completely different. The same clear eyes that used to look at him with quiet conviction now flickered only slightly, with recognition. The same lips that once whispered dreams across campus nights now moved to form a neutral, professional greeting. "Hi there, sweetheart," she said softly, crouching to meet Emma's gaze. "What's your name?" "I'm Emma," came the weak reply. "Well, Emma, I'm Claire. I'll be your nurse today, okay?" Lucas didn't speak. Couldn't. He only watched as Claire gently touched Emma's forehead, then lifted her with a practiced tenderness that made time collapse. The woman he once loved was now the one taking care of the most precious part of his world. And in that quiet moment, Lucas knew. This wasn't just a detour. It was a return. It was nearly midnight when the coughing started. At first, Lucas thought Emma was just stirring in her sleep. Kids did that, especially with a fever. But then came the raspy wheeze, the kind that claws at the back of the throat and steals the breath before it can even rise. He shot out of bed, heart thudding like a war drum. "Emma!" he called, rushing to her room. She sat upright in bed, face pale, sweat dampening her hairline, her breaths shallow and ragged. Her tiny hands gripped the blanket, eyes wide with panic. "It hurts, Daddy. I can't breathe." Lucas's world tilted. He pressed the back of his hand to her forehead, burning hot, 103 degrees. Her little chest was rising too fast, too hard. The thermometer beeped again. 103.7. His fingers fumbled across the nightstand, grabbing his phone. He dialed emergency services. but the line said 20 minutes for a response. He didn't have 20 minutes. For once, logic failed him. Without thinking, he scrolled to the last number he'd saved just hours earlier. Claire Monroe. His thumb hovered, then pressed. It rang once, twice. Lucas? Her voice came through calm, alert. It's Emma, he said, panic breaking his voice. She's not breathing right. Fever's spiking. I don't know what to do. I can't. Okay, Claire interrupted gently, her tone steady like a lighthouse in a storm. Listen to me. Sit her up. Tilt her slightly forward. Pat her back gently. I'm on my way. What's your address? He gave it. 1527 Briarwood Lane, apartment 3B. I'll be there in 10. And she was. Claire arrived without sirens or drama, just purpose. She stepped into the apartment in a grey hoodie and jeans, a small medical bag slung over her shoulder. Her hair was pulled back hastily, her face bare of makeup, but her eyes, those eyes, were all focus. Where is she? She asked. Bedroom, down the hall, Lucas replied, barely breathing. Claire entered like she'd done it 1,000 times, kneeling beside Emma, who was barely able to speak now. Her skin had turned a sickly shade of red. Her breaths came in gasps. Mild laryngospasm, Claire murmured, pulling out a bronchodilator. She's going to be okay, but I need your help. Lucas dropped to his knees. Tell me what to do. Hold her, upright. Keep her calm. She needs to know you're here. He wrapped his arms around Emma, cradling her like he had the day she was born. Claire administered the treatment, one puff at a time, her voice low, encouraging. You're doing great, Emma. Just like blowing bubbles, okay? Seconds stretched. Minutes dragged. But finally, Emma's breathing steadied. The colour began to return to her cheeks. She sighed, her tiny body relaxing into her father's arms. Claire stood, up slowly, removed her gloves and exhaled. She's okay now, she said. She's through it. Lucas looked at her, really looked at her. No walls, no pride, no past. Just gratitude. How did you get here so fast? He asked. Claire paused by the door, then looked back. I've always been nearby. You just never called. And with that, she left. No fanfare, no promises. Just a quiet presence that had once again saved his world. The next morning arrived quietly, wrapped in the soft light of dawn and the lingering memory of a night that almost ended in disaster. Emma sat at the kitchen table, bundled in a fleece blanket, her cheeks finally flushed with colour instead of fever. Lucas stood nearby, a mug of coffee cooling in his hand, watching her closely. Still shaken, still reeling, but grateful beyond words. She smiled faintly as she dipped a spoon into her bowl of oatmeal, her movements slow but steady. Life, fragile as it was, had returned to normal, or close enough. On the table beside her was a folded sheet of paper. The edges were uneven, the folds slightly off-center, clearly done by small hands. With crayon smudges on her fingertips, Emma had worked on it the moment she woke up. Lucas hadn't asked what she was making. He didn't need to. When it was done, she held it out proudly. For Miss Claire, she said. Lucas took it and opened the homemade card. Inside were 3 teacups drawn in colourful watercolour paints, wobbly outlines, but full of intention. One cup had a tiny heart above it. The second had steam curls that spiraled like question marks. The third sat in the middle, larger than the others, the word hope scribbled underneath in pink. Beneath it all, in her crooked, endearing handwriting, was a line that made his throat tighten. The first cup is for Mommy. The second is for you. The third is for the one who stayed. Lucas sat down slowly, the card still open in his hands. It was such a simple gesture, but somehow it shattered him. He looked at Emma, who simply nodded, as if to say, "You understand now, don't you?" Later, that day, He took Emma back to Maple Hollow for a follow-up. Claire greeted them at the door, not as a surprise this time, but with a gentle, knowing smile. She crouched to Emma's level. "Hey there, warrior. Feeling better?" Emma nodded and held out the card. "I made this for you." Claire accepted it, unfolding it with care. Her eyes scanned the page. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, with her voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. "This might be the most important thing anyone's ever given me." She bent down and pulled Emma into a hug. Lucas watched, unable to speak. The quiet between them wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of everything they had left unsaid for over a decade. And then Emma, in that innocent, piercing way only children possess, looked up and said, "You make tea like Mommy used to. She always made 3 cups. I never knew why. Now I do." Claire's breath caught. Lucas glanced at her. Something passed between them. Recognition, maybe even peace. He didn't say sorry. He didn't have to. Some things, they now understood, didn't need words. Some truths are best brewed slowly, like tea, 3 cups, 1 for the past, 1 for the present, and 1 for hope. Claire never mentioned the card again, but she pinned it. On the wall behind her desk, right beside a faded photo of the first patient she ever helped at Maple Hollow. It sat there quietly, 3 cups of tea painted in the bright honesty of a child's love, reminding her why she chose this place, why she stayed. Lucas saw it when he came by a few days later. It wasn't a planned visit, no appointments, no emergencies, just an unspoken urge to return. He stood outside the clinic for a full minute before walking in, dressed not in a suit, but in jeans and a plain white shirt. Something inside him had softened since that night, since the moment Claire stepped through his door and saved his daughter's life without hesitation or question. It wasn't just gratitude. It was something deeper. A reckoning. The clinic was closed that morning. Claire had taken the day off, but Lucas had a key. She'd handed it to him 3 nights earlier, not with instructions, not with explanation, but with a single look. "Keep it if you know what you still owe." And he did. The inside was dim, the morning light filtering through, the blinds. Dust floated in the air like memories that refused to settle. Lucas set down the canvas bag he brought and opened it. Rubber gloves, cleaning cloths, a bottle of lemon-scented floor cleaner, and a small pouch of ginger tea from the same corner shop Claire always mentioned in passing. He rolled up his sleeves. No one asked him to be there. No one would see, and maybe that's why it mattered. He started with the floor. The mop felt foreign in his hands, awkward. The same hands that signed billion-dollar deals now scrubbed tiles until the grout gleamed. Sweat soaked through his back. His palms turned red, but he didn't stop. He moved to the waiting room, straightened the chairs, realigned the brochures, picked up a crumpled tissue someone had left behind last week and tossed it in the bin. Every motion was slow, deliberate, like penance or maybe like prayer. Then, in the back room, he found a chipped teacup. A faint brown ring circled its base, the kind formed not from laziness, but from love used often. He scrubbed it carefully, dried it with a fresh towel, and placed it on Claire's desk, next to the stethoscope she'd forgotten that night. He filled the cup with hot water and steeped the ginger tea, letting its warmth fill the air like memory. On a torn piece of notepaper, he wrote only one line. "Thank you for being there. No name, no expectation, just truth." At 8:30, Claire walked in. She paused in the doorway, her eyes scanning the freshly cleaned space, the faint scent of ginger still clinging to the air. Her gaze landed on the teacup, then the note. She didn't pick it up. She didn't need to. Through a crack in the backroom door, she saw him, Lucas, bent over the armrest of a waiting chair, wiping it clean. No apology spoken, but his hands were saying everything. That night, after the clinic closed, Claire stood alone in her kitchen, the card from Emma now propped on the windowsill. 3 teacups, one for the past, one for the present, one for the one who stayed. She hadn't touched the note Lucas left on her desk. She didn't need to. The mop marks on the floor, the polished teacup, the faint trace of lemon and ginger in the air. Those were the real apologies, and in some strange, quiet way, they spoke louder than the words she used to long for. Claire boiled water, the kettle whistling softly as steam curled into the air. She brought out the old porcelain cups from the back of the cabinet, the ones she hadn't used in years. The first cup she placed in front of her mother's photograph, still framed in silver. The second she set beside an empty chair. The third she placed in front of her own. She poured the tea. The scent of ginger filled the room. Familiar, steady. And then a knock. Not urgent, not demanding. Just 3 quiet taps, like someone knocking, not on a door, but on the edges of a memory. She opened it. Lucas stood there. No flowers, no tie. Just a man who had finally put down everything that once held him back. His eyes met hers. There was no script, no polished speech, only breath and something that looked a lot like courage. She stepped aside. "Come in," she said softly. Lucas entered, his eyes settling on the table. 3 cups, he murmured. She nodded. "The middle one's for Emma," she said. "And the one on the right." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. She placed her hand on the rim of the cup, then pulled it back. Lucas understood. He sat down slowly, his hands resting near the untouched tea. He didn't reach for it. He just let the moment settle, like dust finally allowed to fall. "I used to think time would fix things," he said. "That if I waited long enough, the silence would make sense. But time doesn't heal. People do." Claire didn't speak, but she smiled. Not the guarded kind she wore at work, not the polite kind reserved for patients. This one was tired, gentle, real. Footsteps padded into the room, soft as feathers. Emma stood there in her pajamas, hair tousled, fox plush in one hand. "I smell tea," she mumbled. Lucas looked at Claire. Claire looked at Emma. "Yes, sweetheart," they said at the same time. Emma climbed onto the middle chair between them. Claire poured her a cup. Emma wrapped her small hands around it and said, "Now it's just right." And it was. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. Some things don't need fixing. They just need to be held, like tea that's brewed right, at the right time, by the right hands, 3 cups, finally filled. If this story touched something deep in you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had someone reappear in your life just when you needed them most? Or maybe you've experienced the kind of healing that didn't come through words, but through presence, kindness, and a quiet act that said more than any apology ever could. Tell us in the comments. What part of this story stayed with you? Was it the teacup, the letter never sent, or the little girl who understood love better than the adults around her? And most importantly, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments so we can see how far stories like this travel and connect us all across the world. We read every single comment, and your voice matters here. You never know. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next story tomorrow. It just might be the moment you've been waiting for, because sometimes the third cup is yours.